here. Before the first cannon was fired in the Revolutionary War, we were here. Some of us were slaves, some of us were free, but we were here. Many of our people fought in that Revolutionary War for the issues stated in the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equally. They are to endowed by their Creator with certainly unalienable rights. That among those rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Most of our names have been forgotten by now, for the majority of us were slaves. We were listed only as property, not people. We could not write our own names because we didn't know how to write, and now it seems time has forgotten our names. Yet we have a great history in this country. Ours is the heroic history of survival. Our history travels the length of a whip and vastness of a dream. It spans oceans and centuries. It is the history of the human spirit's quest for freedom. It's the history of our souls.
We begin in Africa. Though most of us don't know where our ancestors were, they were kidnapped and brought across the ocean as slaves. We know the slave ships were outcrowded and our people were abused. The sight was terrible. One man who worked as a slave ship captain knew the sight as well. He grew to hate the slaving business and wrote a song we still sing today. His name was John Newton. The song is Amazing Grace. He wrote it as one of the stormy nights when it seemed the ocean would swallow him and all his ships with hundreds of slaves whole.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found.
Sing yes.
Was blind, but now I see.
Oh, God. I didn't know she could sing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to startle her. I just didn't know.
Amen.
The names of the slaves on Mr. Newton's ships were Africans. Most received new names once arrived at their destination. Their own children did not have African names and were raised speaking English. They had names like Frederick or Harriet or Nathaniel. Perhaps you have heard of Nathaniel Nat Turner, who led his fellow slaves in a dangerous and bloody rebellion. Nat Turner was born the property of Benjamin Turner. He had a vision, and he saw white spirits and black spirits engaged in battle. The sun was darkened, the thunder rolled in the heavens, blood flowed in streams, and he heard a voice saying, "Such is your luck, such you are called to see, and let it come rough or smooth, you must surely bear it."
Nat Turner and many other slaves were executed after the rebellion. But many people, white and black, were listening and knew to the message of the slaves of the former slaves. Many people wanted to abandon slavery and get rid of it. They were called abandonists. One of the most important men of our race was Frederick Douglass. Like Nat Turner, he was born a slave, but he ran away from his master and became a great speaker for the abandonment. Standing before a large audience, he would tell us about his childhood and about the evils of slavery.
Mr. Frederick Douglass sometimes took off his shirt during his speeches and showed the deep whip marks on his back. Sometimes this caused some women in the audience to faint, and sometimes another former slave, a woman, joined him in speaking of human rights. Meet Sojourner Truth. Sojourner Truth. Ain't I a woman? I have as much muscle as any man, and can do as much work as any man. I have plowed and reaped and husked and chopped and mowed. Can any man do more than that? I tell you, the meanest child of glory outshines the brightest sun.
Another great woman of color did not make many speeches, but she did make many journeys. She herself had ran away to where freedom was, but returning time and again to the slave world to rescue other slaves. She took them from one hiding place to another, using what we call the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad was not a real railroad with tracks and trains. It consisted of many safe houses where runaway slaves could stay on their way to freedom. Some called Harriet Tubman Moses. Like Moses of old, she led slaves to the promised land. Harriet Tubman said, I did have some place to go, freedom land, and I took others with me. You see, there was one or two things I had a right to, liberty or death. If I could not have one, I would have the other, for no man should take me alive.
Swing low, sweet chariot, coming forth to carry me home.
Swing
Low, sweet chariot, coming forth to carry me home. You may not know that there were slaves even in Utah. When the pioneers came, they brought 3 colored servants with them in the very first company: Hartley, Oscar Crosby, and Green Flake. Green Flake was probably driving Brigham Young's squadron. Years later, at a Pioneer Recognition Day, Green was honored. A little girl asked him a question. Mr. Flake, what was it like to be a slave? Green Flake answered, being a slave is all right, if you just want to be a slave, that is. But many of us colored folk wanted a better life. If we could find one, I was raised a slave and had a master to tell me what to do. He gave me a place to sleep, fed and clothed me, worked me, and told me what to do each day. Sometimes I got whipped, and my master would give me a big kick in the pants if I slept off or made a mistake, or if I was lazy. Slavery's been around for a long time, and the colored folks got sold like they were a horse, a cow, or some other animal. They become the owner's property, and they work long and hard for the master. Most everyone doesn't want to be a slave and be a bondage for another, because you can't have even your own thoughts and dreams. You can't plan for the future when all decisions are made by someone else.
Freedom comes, but not easy. It came with blood. It cost the nation the Civil War to free its slaves. Many of our race fought in the wars too. After it was over, we were in captive, but we had new challenges. Most we had been slaves still couldn't read or write. We didn't have good schools, and we sure didn't have money. Some still farmed the grounds they had farmed as slaves. Though now they could sell the crop they raised. Others moved elsewhere in the search for a better life. Some found it, and some found only sorrow and trouble.
Nobody knows the trouble I see. Nobody knows but Jesus. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. We knew we needed education. We needed a vision of what we could be, not just a memory of what we've been. There were many who built schools to educate the freed slaves and their children. One of the great ones was Mr. Booker T. Washington. He found Tuskegee Institute. He laid a foundation others would build on. Good people are still working and building to ensure that opportunities for education will be equal for white and black alike, and that all races will have equal say in the government. Booker T. Washington. I do not believe that any state should make a law that permits an ignorant and poverty-stricken white man to vote, and prevents a black man in the same condition from voting. It will become apparent, and the white man who begins by cheating a Negro out of his ballot soon learns to cheat a white man out of his. Booker T. Washington was famous in his day and respected, but full freedom was still a long way off from us. So there came a time when it was necessary to stand up for civil rights, or in one case, to refuse to stand up. Rosa Parks. December 5th, 1995 was one of the memorable and inspiring days of history records. This day at the beginning of the modern civil rights movement that transformed America and influenced freedom revolutions around the world. She had been arrested 4 days earlier in her hometown of Montgomery, Alabama, for refusing to get up and get my seat on a city bus to white men, which was a much resented customary practice at the time. Martin Luther King said to me and others, when history books are written in the future, somebody will have to say, there lived a race of black people, fleecy locks and black complexion, a people who had the moral courage to stand up for their rights, and thereby they injected a new meaning into the veins of history and of civilization.
There are only a few names from our history and a few words. There are so many others now, poets, musicians, artists, doctors, politicians, lawyers, professors. We call ourselves African Americans because we cherish our heritage in its completeness. Africans and Americans, we were here, and we still are, building lives and legacies. Perhaps no one helped us realize our work and our dreams, quite like the Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King. was compelled to carry the gospel of freedom beyond his own hometown. I cannot sit idle by in Atlanta and not be concerned about what happened in Birmingham. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I have a dream that someday my 4 little children will be judged, not by the color of their skins, but by the contents of their characters. I have a dream today.
I have a dream today too. I hope each of you have a dream, and I hope each of you has the knowledge that your dreams can come true. So dream high, lift up your heads and dream high, and lift every voice and sing. Everyone please stand for the singing of the Black National Anthem. It is located on the back of your program.